It's amazing, really, how often the lectionary gives us the perfect reading for a certain day. The day after our election, we have a gospel reading about taxes and government and whether one should pay due honour to the government. That verse, give to the emperor the things that are the emperor's and to God the things that are God's, is sometimes quoted in political discussions if people are wanting to bring religion in. People usually quote it when they want to make sure that religion and politics are kept separate. I do believe Winston Peters of blessed memory quoted it when asked about Judith Collins praying in church. But as we shall see, it's not actually about the separation of religion and politics at all. The political leaders of Jesus' day think that they have caught Jesus out. He's been causing trouble in the temple and telling all these parables against the leaders, and so they think, aha, we're going to get him today. So they sidle up with a nice smarmy tone. Teacher, we know that you are sincere, and we know that you teach the way of God in accordance with truth and show deference to no one. You don't regard people with partiality. Tell us then, is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not? Matthew notes that it's the Pharisees and the Herodians who ask the questions. Now, they are normally two groups who would vie with each other for power, but this time they've come together in their desire to trap Jesus. And their question might seem innocent enough on the surface, but remember the setting. Israel is occupied by the Romans. They're an armed occupying force, and everyone has to pay tax, of course, to the occupiers. So to say yes to this question, yes, it is lawful to pay taxes to the emperor, that would mean Jesus was supporting the occupying force, the oppressor. But to say no, we should not pay taxes, would be to invite sedition and rebellion and the wrath of the Roman soldiers. So, is Jesus trapped? Well, there's another layer of meaning here that Jesus brings out when he asks for the coin. On the Roman coins was the head of the emperor, like we have the Queen on our coins. If you still ever have coins in your pockets, you remember the Queen's on there. And the Roman emperor was on the Roman coins. But the Roman emperor was seen as a god and was worshipped, and the inscription on the coins said, the divine emperor. The coins were seen as a symbol of Roman power and religion, and so the most strict of the Jewish faithful believed that you should never use them, because by using them, you were buying into the fact that the emperor was divine. And the Romans, of course, let the people have different coinage for use in the temple in order to get away from that problem. You remember Jesus throwing the money changers out of the temple? Those money changers are changing those pesky coins with the emperor's head on. So a simple question about taxes was actually a question about the divinity of the emperor and what the people should do when confronted daily via the coins with this image of the emperor. Many, like King Herod and the Herodians, said, it's all right, live and let live, we'll just use them. Whereas the Pharisees and more radical groups were more hardline and wouldn't touch them. So which way was Jesus going to jump? So he says, well, bring me a coin. And whose image is on it and whose title? Well, the emperor's, of course. Well, then give to the emperor what is his. And then we might imagine Jesus turns to one of the people standing or sitting near him and says, whose image is this? Whose image is this person created in? God's, they reply. Whose image is imprinted on this person? Well, God's. Then give to God what is God's. And the people are stunned. Jesus has sidestepped the question of tax and turned it into a question of who are we created to be? Humanity is created in the image of God, and not one of us resembles one another. So how vast then our understanding of God can become as vast as the number of people and cultures walking the earth. And yet in all that diversity, each of us still are called to give to God the things that are God's. And Jesus is not half-hearted when he makes that declaration. He demands that we look at ourselves and remember we are each made in the image of God. We can't split ourselves and say, well, today I'm Caesar's and tomorrow in the temple I'll be God's. We are one person. We can't be split. But I think we sometimes feel split, our life of faith on one hand and then the rest of our life on the other. Maybe sometimes we feel trapped like Jesus, trapped or at least unsure how to express or live our faith outside of the church walls. Do we feel perhaps trapped by the stereotype of what a Christian is thought to be, what other people think that should mean? When Judith Collins prays in a church, everyone is immediately asking, what does this mean? Is she targeting the conservative vote? No one ever asks, is she targeting the progressive vote? Progressive people are Christians too. And assumptions of the church being conservative like that and us not liking that label can really trap us and silence us. And I think sometimes we feel trapped when our own church fails us on progressing things like same-sex marriage, or when they make unhelpful statements about the end-of-life choice bill, or when we hear about the years of abuse at an Anglican school here in Auckland at Dilworth, and our hearts break at those stories. We feel dismayed, we feel disappointed, we feel let down. So maybe we can do what Jesus did when he was trapped and not accept the premise of the question and instead step into a new space. Step into a space where everything we do and everything we say belongs to God. Our lives, our careers, our families, our income, our taxes, our energy, our love. Let's not be Herodians and live with an acceptance of the way things are, and let's not be Pharisees either, rejecting the world altogether. We can be followers of Jesus, challenging ourselves every time we come to worship to go out these doors and embrace everyone as precious people made in the image of God. As our new government gets set to spend our taxes, we can get involved, get political, and roll up our sleeves for service. There's a lot to be done. God's world needs us, our whole selves, bearing God's image in our hearts and in our minds and on our faces.